Conquest Last Argument of Kings, or CLAC for short, is a true rank-and-flank wargame. It is built to be a tactical army mover with levels of strategy built into a unique reinforcement/deployment system. It is also a living world. Right now, you can go vote on what direction the lore will take, what things will happen next, and decide where you want the universe to go. There are currently 7 factions, with an 8th player-voted faction being released next year. As far as I can tell, this faction has not been revealed, but that is in my research for this video. It also has a skirmish version of the game called First Blood. The minis work in both versions. However, one thing you will see a lot whenever you read for Conquest Last Argument of Kings is a thing called a stand. Now, a stand is like a movement train and usually has 4 minis on it. The skirmish version does not use stands, so you won't see much, in the way of that. But that is some of the only unique terminology to this that I will go over. The rest will be when it comes up. The basics on the game before we get into breaking down the factions are this. It is focused around its unique reinforcement mechanic. Instead of a normal deployment zone, you march units in one by one, taking turns. Usually a game lasts 10 turns. The basics are this. Light units will flood the board early on, usually before turn 4. Medium will be in the middle of the game, and heavy will usually only come in the last 2 or 3 turns. Light units can't take objectives, but medium can, and heavy are really, really good at killing things. So this leads to a nice little flow of battle where it's decided by where you can put things in, what they can reach, and what they can kill on time. You are also usually reacting to your opponent or trying to out-mind game them into deploying a unit wrong or in the wrong spot. So there's a lot to this, more than what it seems at face value. Also, most of the rules are free online, so go check them out if any of this interests you. Starting up, our first faction are the 100 Kingdoms. The 100 Kingdoms are your more normal fantasy empire, filled with countless humans. They are inspired heavily by the Holy Roman Empire. They play as an almost horde army. Your units aren't usually the strongest, but you will usually outnumber the enemy by a decent margin. They have faction traits that let you focus on specific aspects of your army, some of which allow you to designate certain units as elite veterans, or give you a second warlord, or make enemy spellcasters have constant interference whenever they try to cast. All of these are very useful. And if you like the Fantasy Knight aesthetic, this is the way to go. Next up are the Spires. The Spires live scattered throughout giant spires that raise thousands of feet in the air. They spawn armies from biomass and can pump out clones like no tomorrow. These are your Eldritch Horror faction. You play this because you love the way the models look, and you want to overwhelm your enemies with dreads beyond their imagining. Due to how they work, they can be a pure horde, an all-rounder, or a pure elite army. They all move fast and have decent healing abilities or regeneration. Some of their faction-specific rules are a buff to your army's clash capability, which is sort of like your attacks, a forced draw of the Burnout Draw event, which also increases clash and move, and a buff to your regeneration. Now, some of that might not make sense, I apologize. There are draw events and draw cards that you can play around and play into in the game as well. I want to break all this down later, and I will in a later video, so for right now, just know it's a fun thing they can do. Next up are the Nords. The Nords are a bastion of human might. Living in the north, they are a beast spawn fused into humankind. The Nords are a monster-focused faction. Many of the units they have are glass cannons, and they get buffs to their attack the more damage they take. This is an army to play if you like keeping up momentum. The main faction-specific rule buffs the Nords' attack by 1 if there are casualties, and after your units have lost half or more of your models or stands, or wounds, you get the Flurry special rule, which lets you reroll all failed clash rolls, which is, again, good. This is a fighty army. They're just meant to be really fighty and really killy, although I personally think they have really cool models compared to a lot of the others. Next up are the Dweghom. The dwarves, the creations of dragons of old, wanted to escape their masters they hated. Swearing themselves to the patron of war itself, they were forced to kill their kinsmen until only the Dweghom remained. They are slow, tough, and have access to a lot of magic. They also have very powerful elite infantry, and some specialized non-infantry choices that can be hard to counter. They have many army-wide abilities, each of which has in-depth effects. They have access to character buffs, and the Dweghom Creed, which has a few paths that give out different enhancements. This is an army to play if you want to be immovable, and kill anything you touch. Next up are the Wargame. The Wargame are nomadic tribes that ride dinosaurs, a fledgling civilization in the eyes of the world. They have a surprising strength that made many regret underestimating them. They're an elite, aggressive army that focuses on a war chant that allows each unit to add to a battle cry, growing in strength until it reaches the finale, which gives a very significant buff to your army. They have very in-depth war chant rules. For each unit that contributes, you get more points. The 4 paths are Famine, Death, War, and Conquest. Each gives you access to different abilities your units can take advantage of, like fighting again, being able to move a bit more, and so much more. This is probably the most complicated army in the game on paper to play. But it's dinosaurs and tribalistic beings. If you can't tell, I absolutely love all of the minis, and this is one of the ones that calls out to me along with the Dweghom and the Nords, and the Old Dominion, which is up next. The Old Dominion. What happens when you try to kill God? Well, they become the god of death and drag you down with them. They are an elite, defensive army that gets stronger with more casualties it suffers. They are a wave of undeath. They play slow and want to grind the enemy down. You can terrify your enemies, empower your forces the more they take casualties, and get access to a dark power pool that further strengthens your abilities. This is a Roman Byzantine Empire aesthetic undead army. And it's the one I'm probably going to get first. I am an Osiarch Bone Reapers and a Necrons man. Finally, until the 8th is released, the city-states. The city-states have flourished where others failed. An ancient civilization full of philosophers, they now stand split between 3 factions and challenge each other and anyone else who gets in their way. They play as a strong core of soldiers and focus heavily on that. They have the most efficient infantry force in the game, only lacking in missile troops and cavalry options. They have formations that buff your units for proper positioning, and auxiliary Minotaur units that buff the regiments they are in. This is an army if you want to be an immovable force, a wall of spears people break against, having auxiliaries to fill in your weaknesses of the monstrous creatures, and being a bastion of humankind and philosophy in this horrible world. And that is our brief summary. Now, as some final thoughts, Conquest Last Argument of Kings is a much newer wargame compared to a lot of others. It has a healthy community that is growing constantly, though. I myself have not played it yet. Unfortunately, there is not a local community that is currently active near me. Trying on Tabletop Sim is very possible, and might be something I do with you subscribers at some point in the future. It's something I've been thinking about. But they do have a Vanguard system, which is a way for you to get in contact with local people who will demo the game for you for free. To do this, just go onto their website. There should be a contact form to fill out. That's how I did it. And go from there. Let them know where you live, and you will be forwarded to the closest person who can demo the game with you. This is something that can be deceptively easy to get into as well. It is a little cheaper than other war games, but in reality, you're probably going to be dropping $400 or $500 on an army to get everything you would need to get to 2,000 points. So, a little cheaper than 40k, but actually more expensive. Because with 40k you can buy models secondhand, but it's hard to find models secondhand for Conquest Last Argument of Kings. In fact, the whole reason there isn't a community near me is when it first started coming out, it was nearly impossible to get boxes of them, so my local game shop just did not try for a while. They might with the new releases coming out, but there hasn't been enough interest for them to want to order it. Know what you're getting into before you jump into it. It's good to be financially smart. This is a game you can tell is full of love and is exactly what these people wanted to make, and that is its biggest strong point. You should at least reach out and try it. Trying for free if there's local people in the area doesn't cost you anything. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I apologize that it's been a bit more rambly than my others, but my thoughts on Conquest Last Argument of Kings are a little hard to just boil down to basic points. There's a lot of feelings and emotions that go into it, and a lot of hope that it's going to get big. I would love if this got really big. So thank you for watching this video and listening to the end. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and maybe subscribe. Next time, it's going to be a Star Wars Legion video, and after that, who knows? Might be another Conquest, might be another Age of Sigmar. Still haven't decided. Either way, have a wonderful day.